Too many black bodies falling. Come on, brothers, love one another. Put down the gun. Let's go. Any place, anytime, anyone can get it. Bust that gap, pills of water when I wet it. I owe niggas shots like doctors paid on credit. The white good K kid who wanna catch it. Nigga claim gangsta, let me see him rep it. Dog want a bone, come fight or fetch it. It's hectic, we caught him heading for the exit. Cat straight pussy, hold spot like a leopard. I come with crook and flail the flock, need a shepherd. Hang with hooks and nails, the Glock, spray like pepper. Clear out the block, then moving like a settler. Chop down trees, make it rain like the weather. They call me king of rock, I'm tougher than leather. With the heavy clip, trigger light as a feather. With the HK, I'm like Koch with the heckler. Play my pawns like chess, this ain't checkers. I'm reckless, and you caught up in the nexus. New Jersey drive my dude about the Lexus. Gun real big like I get them shits from Texas. Hollow tip, hollow out, core solo plexus. My nigga reckless, he's living reckless. Snatch your itch hill, snatch your necklace, a hooligan and wretched. Outcast like a leper. Nightfall hit, he get it quick like a leopard. In the jungle, makes you humble. Where seas don't wave and bees don't fumble. Put up, player, I hear it off and tumble. I suggest y'all niggas step before y'all niggas stumble. Any place, anytime, anyone can do it. Putting bodies in the casket, family's gonna view it. Mother carried flowers, father never knew it. Wasn't there to raise the baby, and the block won't excuse it. YG claimed blood, OG said prove it. Try to push weight, but little nigga couldn't move it. First he starts to use it, then he starts to lose it. Now blood on his door like the little nigga Jewish. Caught up on the block, twisted like a Rubik's. Bricks weighing grams, caskets measure cubits. Bodies keep dropping, families going through it. Brothers on the run like Jesse, you can do it. Living fast and furious with guns in the Buick. Everybody stick them up, and I ain't trying to glue it. Lawyers out to sue it. The courts won't excuse it. Black body in the chair, and the judge said executed. Think this shit is glorious? My nigga, don't be stupid. Mother broken hearted, but the shooter wasn't Cupid. Evil goes around like the devil chopped his fooded. 3-6 mafia like Bishop started juicing. My nigga reckless, he's living reckless. Snatch your itch hill, snatch your necklace, a hooligan and wretched. Outcast like a leper. Nightfall hit, he get it quick like a leopard. In the jungle, makes you humble. Where seas don't wave and bees don't fumble. What up, player? I hear it off and tumble. I suggest y'all niggas step before y'all niggas stumble. My nigga reckless, he's living reckless. To scratch your itch, he'll snatch your necklace, a hooligan and wretched. Outcast like a leper. Nightfall hit, he get it quick like a leopard. You know what I mean? Reckless. It's a warning to our young people not to be so reckless out there in these days and times. It's kind of crazy out there. A lot coming at us from all different types of directions. We want to make sure we keep ourselves focused. You know, we want to live in peace. I saw an ill quote last week. I think it's from Sun Tzu, but I'm not sure. But it said, every man should have peace on his mind and consequences in his hand. And I found that to be extremely interesting because it seems as if it's a contradiction, and it's actually not. You know, we do 24 hours of peace in Newark, New Jersey every year since 2010, pushing peace, love, unity, and safely having fun. And then when we talk about peace, that word peace and what it means, it implies being submissive. There's a strength in submission, so that's a whole nother story. But more so for me, peace is having the peace of mind to navigate through all that life has to offer. Being able to see clearly, being able to slow things down at a rate that you can properly process what's coming at you, information, actions by others, you know, so all types of things happening in the world. And when you have peace within oneself, it allows you to deal with these things. Sometimes you might have to put hands on somebody. I mean, it be like that sometimes. But knowing, you know, when proper circumstances, repercussions that may come after you take that step, I like to say, before you do anything, always ask,
And then what? You know what I mean? And then what? And you should have an answer for that follow up. And then what? What am I going to do? If it's take a loss, then it might not be worth you taking that initial action. You might want to fall back and submit. Come back and fight another day. A lot of the conflict that we find ourselves in are protracted wars and protracted battles. It's not about the immediate win or the immediate loss. It's about what happens over the course of time and how we can set up our infrastructure to deal with things as they come. Sometimes you might have to take a loss, but it's only a battle and it's only for now. You want to win at the end of the day. You want to be able to be victorious in the long game. Chess, not checkers, ladies and gentlemen. Chess, not checkers. So speaking of peace, every year since 2010, we do a festival, a peace festival in the great city of Newark, New Jersey. Big shout out to the Honorable Mayor Raz Baraka. Big shout out to Amiri Baraka. Big shout out to Susu. Big shout out to everybody who's involved in putting on 24 Hours of Peace. Of course, my lovely wife who does the graphics, she does the artwork, she gets the flyers and all the marketing materials looking always beautiful. Big shout out to her. And like I said, big shout out to everybody that involves themselves in 24 Hours of Peace. This year's event is going to take place on August 21st and 22nd. And when I say 24 hours, I mean just that, an entire 24 hours of peace, love, unity, safely having fun. Let's see what we got here.
Yeah. 24 hours of peace, peace, love, unity, safely having fun. Real hip hop for the people. It's an engagement. It's a demonstration. Using hip hop culture to get you activated. Let the people hear the bass, the vibration, the love, peace, unity. And watch them add on some culture. It's not just rapping. It's not what we do. It's how we do it. We're doing it right here, Springfield Avenue, between Bergen and Plum. 24 hours straight, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's 24 hours of peace, love, unity, safety, having fun, which is a hip hop festival that takes place in Newark, New Jersey. This year's event will be held in the South Ward. We're coming back home, South Ward. We were born in the South Ward. We've been moving around the city, Broadway Market, Springfield Avenue, Central Avenue last year. I don't have an exact location, but we know we want to come back home to the South Ward. So August 21st, 22nd, we've been discussing some potential lineups. And, like we do, we step it up every single year. And this year will be no different. We're going to step up our game. The level of talent is going to be next level. And we're going to make things pop, make things happen. Big shout out to the Office of Violence Prevention and Trauma Recovery, Brick City Peace Collective, which are the two offices within the city that help with executing 24 Hours of Peace. And they also do programming all year round for the city of Newark, New Jersey, giving resources, giving educational opportunities, job opportunities, housing opportunities throughout the year. So tap in if you're in Newark, New Jersey, the Office of Violence Prevention and Trauma Recovery, also the Brick City Peace Collective. Big shout out to Deputy Mayor Keisha Yuri. Big shout out to Kalisha. Big shout out to Josiah. Like I said, everybody that's involved with putting on 24 Hours of Peace is always a phenomenal event. And like I said, this year will be no different. All we do is spark Madism. We do Madism Sports on Tuesdays with the guys, Wes, Cliff, Coach E, Kai Will, KG. We're in the middle of the NBA championship series between the New York Knicks and the San Antonio Spurs. This coming Tuesday, we'll be talking about that. Go Knicks. I'm not really a Knicks fan, but I got a lot of friends who are diehard Knicks fans. So I want to see them finally win a chip after the last 53 years of going ringless. It'd be good to see it come home to the tri-state area. That said, let me just big up madisminc.com, which is the website for Madism. All we do, spark Madism. You see, we got the merchandise going on. We got T-shirts, sweatshirts. We got muscle shirts. We got, baseball tees. Come see us over at Madism Inc., MADIZM. And like we say always, don't sell your ass. In these days and times, people are looking to buy your soul. Do not sell your soul. Do not sell your ass. We got musical over here at Madism Inc. So tap in, see what we're doing. Big shout out to Primo. Big shout out to my boy Anthony. Everybody that helps me make the Madism movement go. I see my producer Vita is in the background, chefing it up, getting these topics ready. She told me 8:45, so I had to kind of stand at the top of the key and dribble the basketball, run my mouth. So I see she said, if we have any of the Rock Nation, Roots Picnic, Jay-Z, freestyle stuff lined up, I would love to touch that first, Vita. If not, whatever you got lined up, we'll just take it how it is delivered.
The streets where the hook to swallow woman, bullets to follow woman, and so much coke that you could run the slalom. And cops comb this shit top to bottom. They say that we are prone to promise, but it's home sweet home. Where personalities clash and chrome these chrome, and coke prices up and down like it's Wall Street home. But this is worse.
Whew. You know what I mean? The real hip hop is over here. Big shout out to Jay-Z. Big shout out to Rock Nation. Big shout out to the Roots for putting on a phenomenal event every year in Philadelphia. Philly showed up, showed out. It was phenomenal from what I hear. I didn't get a chance to take part and see it live and direct, but from what I'm getting in, oh man, it was something awesome to see. And of course, there's been a lot of backlash on Jay-Z's freestyle. He was going at jokers. He was, not necessarily calling people out by name, but the references, the double and triple entendres, the metaphors, the similes. Jay-Z was doing Jay-Z how Jay-Z does Jay-Z. And, just before we get really into it, I must say that over the years, he has really made himself one of the preeminent MCs, rappers, lyricists that the game has to offer. As an entrepreneur, businessman, he's taken his brand, his operation to levels not seen before. I mean, we kind of caught wind of it through Puff, but Puff, is not the artist that Jay-Z is, the rapper, the icon. Jay-Z got something else going on with him, and it's been phenomenal and exciting to watch him. I've been extremely critical of Jay-Z over the years. I come from the world of conscious hip hop. And at times I feel, actually most of the time in his earlier years, I felt that, he wasn't representing us, properly. But like I said before, early in the show, it's a protracted struggle. It's a long game. It's chestnut checkers. And in the game of entertainment, he's playing the long game. He's been playing it quite well. This is American capitalism. And, as well as you can play American capitalism, he's doing a great job. American capitalism has its own baggage, and it carves out certain lanes for Black people. Unfortunately, oftentimes we run to fill lanes that, don't quite fit us well, even though it's American capitalism. And this brother right here is multi-billion-dollar operation. The business moves that he's made has been astounding. Again, politics at times been shaky, but he's done a lot to make up for whatever misgivings I had of him in his earlier career. His philanthropy is also next level, and he's made it a purpose to stand up for Black people, whether it be in support of the Trayvon Martin's family, Khalif Browder situation, what are you talking about? People who are facing issues with the justice system, lending their support via lawyers, attorneys, providing suits for people to go to court looking, civilized. And I mean, he's done a bunch of different things that I haven't seen many other people do when it comes to activism and using his brand, his operation to represent that. But even still, he represents the capitalist nature of America. And, I can nitpick, of course I have my issues with how he handled the Kaepernick situation, him taking the job with the NFL as their halftime entertainment supervisor, I thought made sense. I thought he should have done it. He should have taken that position. I think since he has taken that position, he's done a phenomenal job providing us with great talent, with political messaging, and kind of forcing the NFL to adopt through their halftime show stances that we wouldn't normally see them adopt. Kendrick Lamar's performance comes across to me. Beyonce kind of doing her little Black Panther tribute, whether that was intentional or not. The 50th anniversary of the Black Panther movement, her coming out during her show dressed in Black Panther attire with that shit was dope. The 50 Cent, well, I should say 50 Cent, but Dre, Snoop, Eminem, 50, Mary J. Blige, Kendrick Lamar doing his whole demonstration in front of the stage, representing gang culture, gang life, but doing so in a very revolutionary, the image of it was revolutionary. To come back with Kendrick Lamar, the Super Bowl 2 years ago, that whole demonstration was crazy, a critique of American culture and capitalism, and turn off the TV. And like Jay-Z has opened the NFL up to represent a certain form of blackness that we're not used to seeing attached to the NFL. So even though they turned their back on Kaepernick, they threw Kaepernick under the bus, they treated Colin Kaepernick in a way I thought was disrespectful, not only Colin Kaepernick, but the black people, considering the stance he was making. I don't think you can really make up for that. I don't think you can make up for it. But in moving forward, Jay-Z said we're past kneeling. I disagree. But that said, I think he's done a phenomenal job in how he's handled his halftime show director position. I think he's on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give it a 9, 9.5, 9, a strong 9. Yes, I will. Now that said, because he was bucking shots at everybody during the Roots picnic, it's been kind of backlash from the freestyle, from the verse, from him taking shots at folks. There's been a variety of different critiques and celebrations. I'm one who celebrates the freestyle, to be honest with you. Considering what's been said about Jay-Z over the last 4 or 5 years, Epstein files, his association with Diddy, how he treats artists. I have my own personal, interactions with doing business with a Jay-Z operation. Not gonna get into that. Another day, another time. But the title move, Nicki Minaj getting caught up in the mix, her beef with Jay and Beyonce, Dame Dash's take on the whole matter. Of course, Kanye's relationship to Jay-Z, Dame, Rockefeller, then Roc Nation, going forward, them being compared, talking about Kanye and Jay-Z, their money being compared, their impact being compared, their artistry being compared. I don't think that's fair at all. I don't think that it's fair that we compare Drake to Jay-Z. I don't think that's fair. And I don't think that's fair for, either person, because, Jay-Z comes from a time when the music industry was at a certain point in accepting hip hop culture as a mainstream artistic genre, like mainstream, where, people release rap records and they immediately go to the mainstream. He was kind of on the bridge of that actually occurring. Record sales, impact, global appeal, global acceptance, mainstream acceptance relative to the Drakes and the Kanyes and the, even the Lil Waynes. It's like skewed. You can't really compare the two in terms of impact, having lost Biggie, who's kind of Jay-Z's protege, I guess you would say. Of course, the death of Tupac, like that cadre of MC rapper at the time transitioning over to the Jay-Z and the Nas's. I mean, the Snoops, of course, he was around from beginning all through it. But Jay maintaining his position and being at the forefront of his generation, his class of MC. I mean, it's no question who this man is. Like, it really is no question. And those who try to poke holes in his success, doing so, not that we need to poke holes in his success. I just call for understanding. And what I mean by that is understanding American capitalism, American culture, and what they will allow Black people to say, what they will allow Black people to be. Jay-Z's pushed the envelope in so many ways. He was in a box. He's pushed the box further in a lot of ways than other people to allow for a Kanye to exist. I mean, literally and figuratively, when you consider Jay-Z being co-CEO of Rockefeller, as an artist over a lot of the Kanye West tracks, helping to give Kanye his name. Of course, Dame is the one who signed Kanye and believed in Kanye and made way for Kanye as an artist on the label. But that success at Rockefeller is largely due to the success of Jay-Z, and Dame and Biggs and everybody who's affiliated with the label. But Jay-Z as the face, as the figurehead, and no question, Jay-Z's success determined the success of everything else coming after. If Jay-Z failed, would there be, a state property? Would there be a Kanye? Would there be all these other things that came after him? We don't know. We can we can speculate and make hypotheses and theorize about things, but what is what is, and what is that Jay-Z being the co-founder face of Rockefeller is why there is a Kanye, and then everything that Kanye influenced and touched, and including Drake and Nicki Minaj. It's like we cut ourselves from our legacies, and it's a sad thing to see. When we make these comparisons, they say comparison is the thief of joy. We're always comparing this artist versus that artist, this era versus that era. We don't get a chance to really enjoy all these different segmented pieces in their full glory because we're always comparing what this one did to what that one did. And I think that Jay-Z right now is experiencing a lot of that negative comparison in a huge way. And, the younger generations are disconnecting themselves from their legacy because, Jay-Z, Dame, of course, Biggs as a record label, Rockefeller carving away at Def Jam, starting at, from the independent level, doing an independent deal with Will Sarkaloff over at Freeze, turning that over to a deal at Priority, then making, turning that into a deal at Def Jam. That was all a process that had to happen for all these other things to come after. And then even with Def Jam, riding on the back of artists like Public Enemy and LL Cool J and, Nikki D, the homie Nikki D, of course, EPMD, so forth and so on. When we disconnect ourselves from our roots, we disconnect ourselves from our legacy. That's a way that the enemy uses to disconnect all of us from our legacy. It was disheartening to see Max B make those statements about Big Daddy Kane. And we know that he was trolling. He probably didn't mean it exactly how he expressed it in his degrading of Kane. But it's like, bro, if you, disrespect your legacy with Kane, that just leaves the door open for your legacy to be disrespected. And we have to figure out ways of not doing that. Now, I know you have something to play. I want to see what you got for us, Vita.
Every one of them playing these silly games. That 1-800 ambulance chaser with a wish one came. But 911 is a joke. Public Enemy #1, I've been ranked. The rock's not crumbling. The leprechauns have magically run out of pranks. Your son on a federal jail line mumbling something about having too much in his drink. You know how dumb that is? Another one fumbled his, wonder how I get the blame. Niggas' teeth is tumbling out their mouth and somehow I'm the one who done it. It's a murder mystery, gang.
Oh, that's Illmatic.
You had to cash cow and dunk it. Was you who plucked his? I'm the one who strummed the pain. That hill you can die on. It's way too much flack that comes from those planes. I'm killing them softly. What's understood don't need to be explained. You want it one way, it's the other. I still on you suckers, I maul you niggas, gang. I ain't much for me, it's no how. Cancel the brunches, I remember the hunger pains. The price of the bricks going up. It's gonna cost you a beat to even say my name.
Wow. Yeah, so he was talking about Dame Dash in those lines right there. And the two of them created something very special. And I said before I was extremely critical of Jay and the whole Rockefeller movement in terms of what it represented relative to drug culture. The whole image of the drug dealer to me never sits well because of what the war on drugs, which I like to call the war with drugs, did to our people. And that includes, heroin all the way up through coke, crack, and, now we got pharmaceutical drugs, we got lean, all types of, devices, vices that keep us stagnant as a people, and how we're used as rappers, how we've been used as rappers to keep our a steady soundtrack of death, destruction, and misery. Not to say, Jay-Z's the epitome of it or he's the worst of it. He's never been. But in terms of spitting that shit, nigga, he's the best. One of the best. I think Biggie got an edge over him. And Clark Kent and I used to debate that all the time, who was better, Biggie or Jay. And I would always say Biggie. And I still say to this day, Biggie, that era of Biggie, there's not too many people, if anybody, touching that. But, Jay being kind of one of the faces of that negative movement in hip hop always rubbed me the wrong way. But taking it as it is, this is the game. Don't hate the player, hate the game. The game is the game. Him playing the game, he's done it, when you consider him and Dame having the fallout, the breakup of, Rockefeller Records, the Dame and Biggs and Jay going to do his own thing with Rock Nation and carving out a new lane for himself. And, man, who does that? Who recovers in that way and still stay relevant, still have people wanting more music, more bars, more, deals, more. What is he going to do next? And the thing that I like about Jay, is that he doesn't really get in the mud with people like that. Like this Roots thing and the thing he did on GQ, like he presents himself in a way where he's not in the mud rolling around with the swine. Jokers is throwing bricks at him, they coming at him, he's tarnishing his name, he's spreading rumors, there's libel, there's all types of shit going, and he could easily run to the press and give his take. He could easily run to the Breakfast Club and give his take. He can easily run to these different platforms and give his take, but he just sits in the cut and chills and let everybody do them. And when he does him, he does himself in a way that's like, love it or hate it, bro, you got to respect it. Love it or hate it, you got to respect it. Where Dame, the genius that he is, the entrepreneurial, impresario that he is, handles things differently that I don't really like. And that's, always running to these different platforms to air out your grievances. And, he's the one who created the term chatty patty, and he's become the chatty patty. I prefer to see quiet strength. I prefer to see people make moves behind closed doors and exert power in a way where it's not loud, but it's still felt. You know what I mean? Watching the Rockefeller movement, the show the movie that they made Backstage, the classic legendary scene where Dame Dash screams on Kevin Liles because Def Jam did not want to support the tour, so Rockefeller put up their own money for tour support. That was a Rockefeller tour. It wasn't a Rockefeller Def Jam tour. It was their movement, and they were successful at it. They did their numbers. They did their thing. And then Def Jam, looking to, keep their brand and their company relevant, wanted to throw the Def Jam logo, if not the most classic logo in hip-hop culture, one of the most classic logos in hip-hop culture. They wanted that logo on the back of these tour jackets, and Dame caught wind of it and screamed on Kevin. Now, mind you, he was right as a CEO, co-CEO, however that's formulated between him, Jay, and Biggs, but Dame definitely being the voice, the vocal partner in the company. He was supposed to scream on Kevin. He was supposed to shut that down. He's supposed to protect his brand. Does he need to do it on camera and on film, though? So we saw when I say we, myself, Benny Boom, George Higginbotham, and a few other of my brothers out in Brooklyn were watching an advanced copy of the Backstage movie, an early screening, early copy of it. And when I saw that part, I was like, he fucked up. He shouldn't have did that. And everybody said, nah, Hawk, you bugging. He was right. Def Jam is, always trying to exploit their artists and, exploit their subdivisions. And he had to stand up for his company. He had to stand up for his artists. That was the right. I said, nah, I totally agree. You're supposed to stand up for yourself. Do you do it in public, though? Do you did it on camera, and then you went to the cutting room? That's not supposed to make the edit, yo. You had days and weeks to really think about this. You know what I'm saying? And really come to terms. You made your point. Do you really need to put Kevin Liles on blast like that? Do you really need to put Leor Cohen and Def Jam on blast like that? And what you're doing is you're creating people who want to see you fail. You're creating enemies. You're creating, people who will go to their grave to see you fail. And I just think that it's bad to ever engender that type of energy in other people, whether you have the power, whether you're right or not. Like, you don't want to, how can I say, in battle, I'm just figuratively speaking, in battle, you leave your opposition a way out. You leave them a back door. You don't close the back door and then slaughter everybody. You don't do that, because if any survive, they're going to make it their life's mission to destroy you. So there's a way of proving your point, and solidifying your position, and still be able to move on in good faith. So that's what I thought about that. And then, of course, the classic Choke No Joke video, where Dame takes Choke No Joke, the videographer, to this meeting that was being held. I think it was the Blackout album, the marketing meeting. And Dame thought he wasn't invited, but he was invited by email, but he doesn't check emails early in the email culture. But he didn't check emails, and he kind of got blindsided because this meeting was being held without him. And then it hit him that Jay-Z was in on it. And it's, in my mind, people had been working that line of those mechanics for a while. It just didn't happen that day. That was something that was happening over maybe years, maybe since Backstage. That movie where Kevin got put on blast. Like, what I'm saying? It could have been in the works since then. How do we remove Dame out of this formula? And then Dame was removed out of the formula. And, that controversy has lasted since then. I think that was 2007, 8? No, it had to be before that. 2003-ish, maybe. 2002, 3. So we've been watching both these men as entertainers, because Dame Dash is also an artist. He makes music. He has a rock band. He's also a filmmaker. He's an art collector. He's had art galleries, his real estate. He has all types of ventures that keeps him in the public eye. Jay-Z, of course, is still one of the most phenomenal artists doing it. We're still putting out music regularly over that time. So we're watching these people, and we're wondering, are they going to get back together? Do they reconcile their differences? Is this like the end all, the be all? I mean, what's going on? And, I was hoping by now there would have been some resolution. I think Dame keeps poking the bear. He keeps pulling at the scab. Maybe there could have been some resolution and reconciliation years ago, but considering all the things that have been said by Dame on The Breakfast Club, on all these different platforms, it's probably dead and stinking. It's probably safe to say they're never going to do business together again. And that's sad to say. Dame, because he's been so public, with his successes and his failures, his apparent failures, because again, it's a long, protracted game. It's the long game. It's chess, not checkers. So I never want to count Dame Dash out. I do believe in a lot of what he says in terms of his business acumen, how to structure businesses, how you should deal with executives and corporate, and helping to teach artists and young entrepreneurs, how to be brave and how to stand up for themselves. I love all that. But Hov said, somebody said they made Hov. Let's see him make another Hov. And though he signed Kanye, and he's the one who opened the door for Kanye, we connect Kanye more readily with Jay-Z than we do with Dame, which is ill. They did the joint project together. The Otis Redding track was amazing. Shit was incredible. Jay-Z, as he does with not just Kanye, with a lot of other people, he identifies where the wave is, and he goes and grabs a surfboard, and he goes and throws it and goes surfs that wave, And he did that with Kanye, and then eventually he and Kanye would have a falling out. Kanye would reckless. We could all, agree Kanye is out there. He does his thing, phenomenal in his own right, genius in his own right. But there's a lot to Kanye that it's like whatever. But Jay-Z rode that wave until that wave crashed, and then he kept it moving, and he did that spectacularly. He fucking rode that wave like no other. That shit is funny. He has a strong knack for identifying the wave, grabbing a surfboard, and ride. It's amazing. Take notes, ladies and gentlemen. Take notes. Take notes. Where Dame stays talking about Jay, whether directly or indirectly. And it's not all Dame's fault necessarily. I mean, everybody wants to know what's up with you and Jay. So that the conversation kind of always goes there. And even Dame at times says, like, people ask me about Jay. I don't bring him up. You guys bring him up. But I think you notice that the algorithm spikes when you talk about Jay. People's ears perk up when you talk about Jay. So I think you've given in. You said, fuck it, I'll just talk about Jay. If that's what it's going to take for me to get my attention, I'll just do that. But that's not creating another Jay. And not to say you should create another Jay. I think you should put Dame Dash in a space that's impervious to any Jay-Z talk, any Jay-Z rhetoric, any Jay-Z comparisons, any Jay-Z. Like at this point in time, it really should be all about Dame, and it's not. And that's disappointing to me because, he's the people's champ. He stands up to the powers that be. He's screamed on folks that needed screaming on, just maybe not in public or not in a way where they don't have the back door to escape, where they can't recover. People have been circling the wagons to destroy Dame and destroy his legacy, destroy his name, and he's become a caricature of himself. And I don't like that. I really don't like that. I don't know if there's anything that he can do to repair that. But, if all of the jokes about Jay just furthers that, I think, demise of the Dame Dash brand, because you're forced to then compare. Like I said, I don't like the whole comparison. Comparison is the thief of joy. You know what I mean? Like, but as long as you're poking, it's like, Jay-Z came out with the Afro now, the Afro. I had dreads. Like I was the dread. People know me because of the dreads. A lot of folks don't even recognize me because I don't have the dreads anymore. And I never thought about combing them out, but I would assume that is a long, arduous process of combing out dreads into a fro where you don't see any lock, any matted hair, he just had kind of free-flowing hair, as if someone took the time to comb out each dread. And if that's real, there's jokes. People are saying that it was a wig. I don't think it was a wig. I think he had it combed out. That shit is crazy. Dame poking fun had an image of Goofy. He should have got the camel. That would have been funnier, actually, Dave. You'd have got the camel. Salem cigarette camel, and we got that motherfucker and shit. Put the fro on that motherfucker. Anyway, he had Goofy on Jay-Z's body in a fro, and it's like, you know, I don't want to see that from you, Dame. I want to see if you're going to critique, critique the business of the moment, critique the moment for what it is, not from the shits and giggles. And he's talking about Jay-Z's got bad breath, like whatever. Like, we don't really care. We saw your teeth fall out your mouth. Like we saw that. I think you set that up too. Comb out his thing. I think the whole teeth falling out your mouth may have been something you orchestrated and you coordinated. He stole that from Choke No Joke. Dame did that. But it's like, why even degrade yourself like that? Why even, like, don't allow yourself to be diminished, Dame, at all. As a Harlem cat, as a Harlem nigga, Harlem niggas got the reputation of being fly as shit. Like, the way Harlem niggas are perceived, and you have a lot in crafting that image of a Harlem dude, is as a boss. So to see your teeth fall out your mouth diminishes, how we see you. And, Jay said that in the rhyme, which was, your teeth tumbling out your mouth, but I'm the one to blame. Like, that shit was like, that's a bar. Like, you gave him that bar. And I have this thing, I've been guilty of this, but we got to be careful. Not just myself, not just Dame, but everybody out there listening. Be careful not to give people the knife to stab you in your back. People are always looking to stab you in the back. Don't give them the knife. And, that you with that whole teeth falling out your mouth, you gave Jay the bar to use against you. And that's just like, that's not fly, my guy. That's really not fly. Now, both these men, relatively speaking, comparatively speaking, have done a lot for the game in a lot of ways. And I would never look to diminish anything that they've done, because they have done a lot. But again, recognizing this is American culture, this is American capitalism. They're only gonna allow certain people fill certain spaces. So even like the conversation around the freestyle, to me, though I liked it for what it was, I'm glad that he didn't call anybody out by name in the way he spit it. It was like he was just addressing what people are saying about him. That's dope. But, coming from Jay-Z, who's now the director of the halftime Super Bowl, dealing with the NFL. I know he did make he made the MAGA shot. I'd like more of that. I like more critique of American politics, Donald Trump, the state of the culture, how people play along with our oppression, how people feed the beast that keeps us oppressed. The conversation around even the Jay-Z Dame Dash beef really is a distraction from all the more important things that are going on in the world. And, considering the young boy who lost his life in South Carolina, whose killer was just released. I know that happened, I think, after the show, but that conversation was happening. ICE is happening. There's so many things that are happening that I would like to hear a Jay-Z, a Dame Dash seriously speak to, not shits and giggles, not jokes, not, sidebar conversation, but have real in-depth conversations about, what's going on and our role as hip hop, how we can play a part in addressing and, making lives better for our community, using hip hop as a tool, using, all of this attention that we've garnered to move more important conversations along outside of the BS. Even though I'm participating in it as well, I mean, it's hip hop, it's the culture, it's entertainment, it's what everybody's talking about. It gives me a way to kind of bridge over into more serious things, kind of given my personal context, mind you. I'm not the end all, the be all. I don't want to put myself as that. But, I think that I have an important voice in the culture. I think people listen and look toward me for some understanding about how things relate to us on a grassroots level. But coming from Dame and Jay, these entrepreneurial greats, billionaire in Jay-Z's case, him sitting with the Warren Buffetts and sitting with the heads of the NFL. Like, what's your take on, Jackson Dart and what he said? And like, it's just, at what point do we raise the conversation? Do we always have to be in the mud? And this is one time, Jay-Z fucked around in the mud a little bit. He got a little dirty. But in that context, I appreciated the freestyle. So that's my whole take on the thing. I probably will be discussing more about these two men. They're always giving us content in some way, shape, or form. So we'll go a little deeper. If you guys have any questions, don't feel free to hit us up in the comments section. Big shout out to allhiphop.com, All Hip Hop TV. Chuck Creekmore was down here with me a week ago. We went to the Black Film Festival, the African American Film Festival down here in Miami, Florida, which was phenomenal. Shit was dope. We was running around getting footage and getting content, running to folks. Big shout out to him, my dude. But yeah, that's my Jay-Z rant.
Like, you vlogging, we see you on stream.
Yeah.
The Ice Spice situation when y'all were in y'all moment, and then y'all literally were public about the reconciliation and all those things. Like, I think people get a chance to grow with you and learn with you, and that's why we become like fans.
Yeah.
But why did y'all squash that one? Like, because that could have went on forever, but y'all decided to squash it and did it with record. I thought that was dope.
Why? I don't know. I'm like growing up. I'm just growing up, and I just be like, shit don't be that deep.
What was that conversation like?
This nigga just asked you, why did you decide?
Why?
Because
Why did you decide to be mature?
I mean, I think that's dope. But she pulled up in the Bronx.
I know.
Because then it's not even just because people can squash stuff, but then y'all get together and do a song. Y'all do business together. I think it's different when you link your brand and your face to something too.
Yeah,
I think that was the most mature thing I had seen in a while. Like, oh, this is a real thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just wasn't that deep. So her manager had called my manager and was like, she trying to squash it, like she want to do music, and I was like, you know what, actually I am open to that. Open to that. Okay.
Mature Lotto.
I love that. She said,
especially when it's something that was like for no reason anyways. Right. Like, that shit was one of them times where I let like Twitter and like just like noise get in my head, and probably she could say the same. I can't speak for her, but I'm guessing that's the same for her, and we both was probably on some like, bitch, what we even beefing about again?
Like, we both successful.
Yeah,
we, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. We don't rap about the same shit. We got two different genres, but we both rap girlies. Let's do that.
Yeah, and we got more in common than differences, so it's like, that's whatever.
So are you not still going to accept the bag from Cardi? And on that, you have a verse where you talk about, you say, bitch said what, let's clock it. Really got a Hermes store in my closet. Talking about buying Big Mama a bag like a nigga ain't already bought it. Like my nigga ain't already coming off racks. Big bank, big facts. And we know that Cardi apologized publicly to you after she went on that rant against Ice Spice and mentioned you, and mentioned buying you a bag in private. And then this line came in. The fans were like, is she talking to Cardi? What's going on? Like, everybody's trying to piece it together and figure that out.
Well, yes, yeah, it was about Cardi. Like we were saying earlier, like I rap about what's going on in my life at the moment. At the time, first of all, I made this album over 9 months. I made the album while I was pregnant, and I was at an early stage in my pregnancy, and I rushed to the studio to do this verse for her in time for the first week sales, whatever. And
for Airtime.
Yeah, for Airtime remix. And literally like 2 days later, I'm all over the internet, I'm being called pussy. I'm pregnant, emotions high, like
hormonal.
And it's someone I dead ass looked at as a friend. Like I understand this industry shit first too, but we was on a texting basis. So I feel like, you tweeted to the world, but we got each other number.
Cardi B is speaking out after Lotto revealed in her Breakfast Club interview that "Gimme That" was aimed at her, according to, and I can't even read that. According to Cardi, I can't read the fine print. But, I liked to hear that from Lotto. Big shout out to her. She sounds like she's maturing, like she said. Even the way she delivered that was very matter-of-factly and being honest about her emotional state, being pregnant, hormones kicking, running around, and being reactionary in how she handled it. I just want to see, I'm the 24 hours of peace guy. I've always been about unity, black and brown unity, black unity. And she apologized again and took full responsibility. Absolutely. Like, that's big, that's huge. And that's what we need more of, it's difficult because, in your 20s, in your 30s, we're young, we're immature, we still in the streets or letting the streets dictate. And when we say the streets nowadays, is social media, dictate how we handle our business between each other. And that's as adults, as we gain our understanding and maturity, it's important for us to give the examples to young people on how to act. It's just that was big. And big shout out to the Breakfast Club for having that conversation with her and handling that, as compared to Jay and Dame. Yeah, I mean, it's different. It's quite different because, these folks they didn't have a company together. Jay and Dame have a lot of personal time, personal conflict, personal growing pains through the 90s, through the days when they were doing things, from an independent level and then being successful businessmen together. And then, the way they split up. It's different, not quite the same. But nonetheless, Lotto and Ice Spice, the way they handled that, very mature, dope. I'm glad that the Breakfast Club highlighted that and platformed that conversation. I couldn't see Cardi's response to Lotto saying, yeah, that shot was about you, Cardi. But I know Cardi at times has been one to take the lead on, expressing maturity and understanding about how an artist should act. But then, Cardi would be back out there, ass out, acting crazy. So, I guess we're all human beings are 360 degrees. We have different aspects of ourselves, and no one's all good, no one's all bad. So I don't want to throw any shots at Cardi per se, but just in terms of these young ladies and how they're handling their conflict and their beef, I think it's something to be admired and highlighted and accentuated and promoted for the next generation of artists and just people out there in the community, knowing that they can, overcome their differences and conflicts without it being violent and being something that's devastating and tragic. Because, there's a lot going on in the world where our people, Black and brown people, are being attacked and targeted and set up, not just set up for failure, set up to be exterminated. And we're seeing it more and more every single day where, outsiders of the Black and brown community, of the hip hop community, are engaging with us violently because the narrative that has been created is that we're violent. The narrative, the image has been created that this is the way Black and brown people get down. This is the way they're to be dealt with. And, we're seeing people try to bait us into conflict to give cause to murder us. And, I think us, not that that's going to stop it, not that us knowing how to deal with each other and act civilized toward each other is going to stop other people from wanting to, do what they do to us. But, we got to understand that we all we got. So if we don't stay on code, there is no code, which means anybody can do anything to us and our loved ones. And that's what we've been creating through our music and our art, in my opinion, for the last 35 years, is this level of ignorance, uncivilized behavior with social media. I call it the currency of spectacle. Everybody runs to social media, runs to these platforms to make an ass out of themselves and others. for likes, clicks. There's a value for doing something negative. You know, negativity travels faster than positivity, unfortunately, but that's American culture. That's American capitalism. Our culture, hip hop culture, has become a tool for the powers that be to use against us, and we got to take note of that. That said, to see those ladies put it into their conflict is to be applauded. Once again, big shout out to the Breakfast Club for platforming that. That said, Rick Chow found not guilty. Rest in peace, Cyrus Carmack Belton. And this is one of the saddest stories happening in the world today. A 14-year-old a few years ago was murdered. He was in a Chinese store, a Chinese-owned store in South Carolina, and he was accused of stealing water, which it was proven he did not steal water. He was being accused while in the establishment, was being yelled at by the female proprietor of the store. Then she told her, I think her husband and his brother, who then chased young Cyrus out of the store, chased him for over 100 yards, which is the length of a football field, ladies and gentlemen. He ran from them while they chased him and shot him in the back, killed him. The shooter, the killer, Rick Chow, the owner of the gas station, was found not guilty and was released from custody a couple days ago. And it's got the world on fire right now. Our community is standing up in solidarity with the family. Rest in peace, Cyrus Carmack Belton. We offer our condolences to his family, to his parents, to his mom.
And I look at my social media, I have racist people coming to my page, going under my son's pictures, leaving the most horrific things, saying that they're glad he's dead, good riddance, and I am tired. I don't want this to happen to any other child. No black or brown child should have to go through this. No parent should have to go through this. This has to stop today. And I just learned today that South Carolina, if it's a murder charge, that they cannot bring in any of your prior acts. Rick Chow shot 2 people before. Rick Chow accosted a child in that store and beat her up with a gun on her hip. And none of that information could be brought to light. And I do not think that is fair. And if that is on the law books, that needs to be changed. Because if that was not there, then my son would have gotten justice.
Oh, man, it hurts because we are each other, we are each other. That could be you, it could be me, it could be the next person's child. We saw Trayvon Martin, we've seen Mike Brown, we've seen, too many names to name, actually. It's sickening and it's saddening, and it should give us a reason to protect one another. It should give us reason to not want to bring negative energy to each other. And I say that because as an MC, a rapper, a lyricist, an artist, who stands for peace, it's just when I hear the negative, violent music that's being promoted and pushed upon our community, and then know that there are others, outsiders, who want nothing more than to see Black people and brown people gone, and they're doing it in real time, whether it's George Zimmerman, whether it's Rick Chow, whether it's Derek Chauvin, whether it's police forces across this country. And like they're openly saying they want us gone, they want us locked up, they want us dead, and they're showing us. So it's like, at what point do we stand up for each other, that we love one another, respect one another, and we push each other towards success, not to be flossy, not to shine on one another, not to make each other feel less than, but to be able to invest in each other and invest in our community and invest in our self-defense. I'm talking about, immediate self-defense, You take it how you receive it. You know, I'm pro gun. I'm pro gun ownership. As long as there's this thing called the Second Amendment, and as long as other communities have access to guns, I think our community should have access to guns. I'm just not one to be riding around, rolling around strapped. I'm not one to be threatening, my brothers and sisters or anyone for that matter with gun violence. I'm just not one to do that. I think that we should be talking against that because we know the Rick Chows of the world have it in for us. And we see it, with the murder of this young boy, Cyrus, and what his parents are going through. And in any way that we can support his mom, his dad, his family, we should find ways to support them. But unfortunately, this is happening all across the country, not just by guns, by, we're finding bodies hanging. There are actual lynchings going down across America and have been for some time. I've been reading. I don't have anything readily handy to share, but you guys can look it up yourself. Most recent lynchings of Black people, and you'll see a plethora of names come up. I'm talking about this is in the immediate, like last week, last month, a couple months ago, last year, the year before. We know that there's hundreds of thousands of missing Black women that still have yet to be found, and we don't have an Amber Alert. And notice it's of course the Amber Alert is a response to a white child named Amber that was taken. That's why they called it that. So I don't want to devalue the Amber Alert, but we need our alert. We need our system, our organized body of information and support where we can have people on the lookout for our children and support for our children who've been traumatized and raped and murdered and hurt by gunfire. Big shout out to the Office of Violence Prevention and Trauma Recovery, Brick City Peace Collective, 2 offices set up by the Honorable Mayor Roz Brock in Newark, New Jersey, to do this type of work. And they've been around now for over 10 years doing this type of work, finding the funding, finding the resources to give families support, to have, the police department and social workers, on the lookout for our traumatized teens and adolescents and young people and adults. It just hurts to see once again this happen, and then the murderer, the killer, go walk free. Rick Chow is from the Asian community, Chinese community, I think. The irony is somebody drew a comparison between the real life story of Cyrus Belton, his murder, Rick Chow, and in Sinners, the Asian families that's featured in Sinners, their last name was Chow. And then there's a political dynamic that's going on when you realize that in the movie Sinners, the Chinese family owned a Black grocery store and a white grocery store. Like, it's almost setting them up. They were playing the ends against the middle. They were able to achieve some type of economic benefit from not being Black by being allowed to service the Black community and the white community. It's not that Black people couldn't service themselves. It's that they weren't allowed to service themselves. And then there's a whole history around not just the Asian community, but the Latino community, other communities using the Black community as a springboard to their own community success, exploiting our commerce, exploiting our labor, exploiting our communities, while taking advantage of the civil rights that were won by Black people, bodies laid down by Black people, civil rights movement legislation being created, organized by Black people, these immigrant communities coming in and being able to take advantage of these laws that were established by Black people, only to look at the Black community in disdain as just a vehicle for exploitation and them getting their dollar and then moving on. So, as we, through our music, degrade ourselves, we got to realize that we're degrading ourselves in front of communities that then it doesn't give credence, it doesn't justify, but in their minds, it justifies the way they treat us. We know we walk into some of these establishments, the way they talk to us, the way they treat us, the sanitary nature of because it's in a Black community. It's dirty, it's filthy, it's just nasty, but it's only niggas, so nobody cares about them. You're just here to get their money. They don't invest in the community. They don't invest in the schools. They don't invest in, our young people at all, but they take our dollar. And if they are given the chance to take our lives, they'll take that too. And we got to recognize that as artists, as spokespersons for our community. As artists, man, we represent our community, man. That's one thing we talking about, represent. That's a big concept in the hip hop community. Represent, right? Who you represent. What do you represent? We have to push our young artists to represent something more valuable than the murder of each other, because there are people outside of our community that have no problem accommodating us. Yeah, this is a good clip. I like this sister, Asian sister, dropping some jewels.
What do you think there is to gain when a bunch of Asian content creators speak directly to the Asian community about the atrocity and the verdict of Rick Chow? See, come over here. I'm gonna let you in on a secret. Asians are fucking stupid. Just because they're doctors and lawyers and dentists and they went to Ivy League schools does not mean that they're intelligent. It simply means that they're good at memorization and regurgitation on a Scantron test. Because if Asians were intelligent, the Evelyn Haws of the world would stop dating white men, especially the ones that hold a knife against your neck and joke about pushing you off a sailboat so that you could die in the middle of the ocean. But we all know the Evelyn Haws of the world won't put two and two together because they're not intelligent and will say, hey, just because he's a rotten apple, we shouldn't throw out the whole bunch because that is racist. And then they will continue to go on and date another white man. Because if Asians truly were intelligent, they will be able to use those two thumbs of theirs to do a Google search on their supercomputer called an iPhone and look back at Asian American and Black history to realize there was solidarity between Asians and Black, because both of them were being lynched by white people. And the alarm bells should go off their head because nothing has changed from 300 years ago when they were being lynched as Chinese migrants, as currently there are still Chinese immigrants being lynched today by white Americans. But nah, they continue to pander to white people and date them too. And if Asians were truly intelligent, they would use those same two thumbs to realize that there were Black soldiers fighting for their freedom in the Vietnam War. And simultaneously, as Black people died selflessly in the Vietnam War, there were other Black Americans fighting and protesting against the war to end it. Because why should Black people fight a war that nobody wanted? But we all know in typical colonizing fashion, the USA couldn't mind their own fucking business, so they had to interject. But that's only after they tucked their tail behind their legs because they lost the war and raped a bunch of women in Vietnam and got them pregnant. But you would think, given the atrocities and the trauma of what happened to the Vietnamese people during that time period, that they would vote differently against their white oppressor. But they don't. 23% of Japanese apparently forgot about the Japanese internment camps. 34% of Vietnamese people apparently forgot about the raping of Vietnamese women during the Vietnam War. 44% of Filipinos apparently forgot that they were being sold as slaves by their white oppressor. And a disappointing 39% of Chinese Americans forgot that their ancestors were lynched by white people and blown up by dynamite in the mines. So you really think a video is going to solve it? When chemically and molecularly they're... No, you can't fix stupid. That's why I said in my follow-up video, the only time that you will see racism cease to exist is when humans go extinct. Like the dinosaurs.
One thing we take for granted is, most people walking around have been programmed. It's called a TV program. It's called programming. It's called radio programming. It's a program, right? And that program just doesn't affect Black people. It affects white people. It affects Asians. It affects everybody. First of all, the concept of race is unscientific. Race was created by some Europeans to classify people in groups, giving hierarchy to groups, thereby validating the exploitation of these groups. White at the top, yellow, brown, Black at the bottom. That's a concept, adopted from Hinduism and Indian culture, but exported around the world. And this concept of whiteness is an illusion. It's a way to divorce Europeans from their own humanity by claiming this unreal thing called whiteness. When many of the early immigrant populations came over from Europe in the early 1900s, they came by way of the Black community. Like, they were forced into the ghettos with the Black community. In fact, the word ghetto is a Jewish word. European Jews formed the first ghettos. And then over here, ghetto has become synonymous with Black people. every immigrant community starts out in the ghetto. The Irish, the Italians, the Spanish, Hispanic, Latin, however you want to classify yourself, the Asian community. I can remember as a kid in the 70s going to the barbershop, and it would always be an Asian man and his kid with, trinkets to sell, whether it's candy bars, it was lighters, it was, some, dusty, nasty looking item. Or the New York City subway, you come through and they go car to car to car, and they make their money selling us their items. And, you hear pushback from some of the brothers. Nah, fuck that. Get the fuck out my store. I don't want you in here. So, and you hear some voice go, let him be. He's just trying to hustle. He's just trying to make $1. Don't be mad at him. He's just too. And then we allow them to come in the establishment and hustle their items. I can't think of ever being in a Chinese store that allowed young Black kids to hustle waters out their store, or young Black kids to come in and raise money for a school program, or that's not allowed. There's no loitering. There's no solicitation. They don't let that happen. Mind you, Asian store in the Black community, not allowing Black community to do commerce in this establishment when you have the establishment because you were doing business in Black communities. What you got for us, Vita?
Since you ask, Black people in the United States on average were more successful than Asian Americans up until the 1950s and 60s when the United States started pushing the model minority myth. If you look at census data from the 1940s, Black people were earning significantly more than Asian people. But the United States was engaging in military actions in Asia under the guise of bringing democracy and fighting against communism when the rest of the world started to wonder, with the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II, the Chinese Exclusion Act, and Jim Crow, what business did the United States have being in another continent telling other countries how to operate when they treat their own people so poorly? That's when the United States started to say, no, Asians are doing great. They work hard, they're quiet, they don't protest, and they are lifting themselves up by their bootstraps out of poverty. The problem is Black people who are protesting. And opportunities that were previously withheld from both Black and Asian people started being provided to Asian people and continued to be withheld from Black people. Then in 1964, when the Civil Rights Amendment finally passed and Black people were supposed to receive equitable access to those opportunities, in 1965, the United States opened the door to Asian immigration with the Hart-Celler Act and continued giving those opportunities to Asian people. Very importantly, the ability and resources to open, own, and operate businesses in Black neighborhoods, which effectively deprived Black people of the ability to invest in their own neighborhoods. Now, in case you're still thinking, no, it really is about emphasis on education, by the 1980s, an Asian American without a high school diploma was earning about the same as a white person without a high school diploma, and both were earning significantly more than a Black person without a high school diploma. So that has nothing to do with educational attainment and everything to do with the opportunities provided. But also that you inserted yourself in a conversation between two Asian Americans to weaponize Asian American identity against Black people is just gross.
Right. So, our humanity as quote unquote Black people. So just like there is no such thing as a Black person or a white person, there really is no such thing as a Black person. That's again, social construct that's created to divide humanity into categories to be exploited. Okay. Though race is not a real thing, racism as a social construct is entirely real. This nation, the United States of America, the corporation, was born out of racism, and that was the exploitation of Black bodies as chattel slavery. People always like to say, oh, we're all slaves, we're debt slaves, it's the same thing, we're all slaves. No. Black people, quote unquote, African Americans, indigenous Americans in some cases, were the only chattel slaves, meaning we were human cattle, we were pets, we were farm animals to the white establishment, and we were treated as such. In order to make that work, they created a class stratification based on color, so white people would keep that form of exploitation intact. As long as they were better than Black, quote unquote, Black people, they would maintain the status quo. That's called conservatism on another level. And as immigrants communities would come in, first to be rejected by the dominant white society, quote unquote, white society, or the, established European society, let's say it like that, as they would be rejected at first, they would make their way through the Black community, build alliances at first, economic alliances, social alliances, cultural alliances. But then when those relationships with our community were no longer needed, they jumped ship to become closer to whiteness, to be accepted as white people. And that's to get these people to validate and keep in place the structure that exists, conserve the structure that exists, which is the young Asian woman that was talking right previously, how she described Asian community, using the Black community to gain a footing and then abandoning ship. I like to see Asian communities, Asian organizations, Asian spiritual groups, Asian whatever I want to see them come out and align themselves as allies with the Belton family around the murder of Cyrus. That would go a long way. A few years ago, I want to say it was right around the George Floyd rebellion, there was civil rights laws passed that people falsely attributed to the Asian community. A lot of Black people felt like Asian people were getting something that we weren't. And I found out later that it was actually a blanket, a piece of legislation that was blanketed across all groups. It's just that there was an incident that happened with some Asians. So there was a conversation about Black people need to support Asians, and Black people are racist against Asians. And, we saw with ICE and the immigrant Black people going, nah, we're going to sit this one out. We're going to let y'all figure it out. And people going, oh, what are you talking about? Black people need to step up and join this fight. And we're like, man, we've been fighting this fight for, 400 years. You guys have at it. And us getting criticized for it. I think this is another example of why people felt that way. Where's our Asian allies? Not these individuals that we played on the stream. These are like one-offs. These are like, and big shout out to them, big up to them for speaking truth to power as Asians. But where these organizations and these committees and these groups stepping up to give support to the Belton family, and see if we can maybe get some things changed in South Carolina in terms of how evidence is entered into the discussion. The mom spoke earlier about this guy, Rick Chow, having 2 other prior incidences where he shot at people or shot somebody, and that evidence wasn't allowed to be entered into the court, and that could have swayed the jury. So I personally think that, they had it in for us in this verdict. Someone else had said that they went wrong when they charged Chow with first-degree murder, because that's a harder conviction to prove. But from what I'm hearing and seeing, prosecution did a great job in proving he murdered that boy, and the jury just decided for some reason not to convict. It's another sad case, and we'll keep in tune. We'll give you updates. I would definitely encourage everybody to tap in with the Belton family. I don't have any information on how you can reach them, but I'm sure you can Google it and find out, and give your support financially or otherwise. Just in, Albania just frozen Jared Kushner or Israeli-linked dirty assets in the $4 billion resort fraud probe. Albania's anti-corruption prosecutors has banned and seized all Jewish-linked properties and land grabs and banking assets. So Jared Kushner, the husband of Ivanka, formerly Ivanka Trump, but now Ivanka Trump Kushner, son-in-law of Donald Trump, he's been doing business deals all around the world on behalf, we think on behalf of Trump and the Trump family, though Jared Kushner's dad is a huge real estate mogul who spent some time in jail, and then Trump would end up pardoning him. Jared has a lot of power, ladies and gentlemen. He just does, from his dealings in Qatar, Saudi Arabia, of course, Israel, his ties to Israel. I don't want to get too deep and speak out of turn, but there's some talk that Jared Kushner and his relationship with Netanyahu is the real force behind this war with Iran. Bibi is his godfather. That's right. Netanyahu, when he would come to New York, would stay at Jared Kushner's house. The story is Jared Kushner would have to give up his room to Benjamin Netanyahu. So that's how tight that Jared Kushner is with Benjamin Netanyahu. And it seems as if that relationship, I can't even put it on that relationship because America's relationship with Israel has been alive and kicking since the creation of Israel back in the 40s. And, even beyond the financial ties to what is now the Israeli government is totally a U.S. Great Britain creation, and the United States has been sustaining it. Our tax dollars, by the billions and billions and billions every year, go to support Israel in its occupation of Palestine, its takeover of Palestine. And, the talk of that takeover extending past just Palestine, but of course, Iran, Egypt, Lebanon, the entire what is called the Middle East. I like to call it North Africa or Southwest Asia, but for you guys' benefit, we'll just say the Middle East for now. They want that whole area. They want to claim that. And Albania. Now, Albania is, I'm not sure, excuse my geography. I'm usually on point with these things, but Albania, I don't know where Albania is. I always thought that was in Eastern Europe or somewhere. I don't know. We got to figure that out so I don't look crazy. But there's an island off the coast of Albania that is possession of Albania, the nation, the country, this nation state of Albania. They own this property. And Jared Kushner went up in there and did some type of deal with somebody. And then Ivanka's out there going, oh, yeah, we just acquired this property, this island in Albania. We discovered it. She said they discovered it. Albania. Oh, wow. Okay. Let me see. Okay. Ooh, okay. Albania sits east of Italy, off the boot of Italy. It's next to Montenegro, North Macedonia. It sits northwest of Greece. That's the Adriatic Sea. So it would be an island off the coast of Albania in the Adriatic Sea. Southeastern Europe, that's Southeastern Europe, situated on the western part. This is in my way. This little volume button is in my way. Let me see. The Balkan Peninsula, situated off the western part of the Balkan Peninsula. Thank you, Vita. Saved the day. I was looking crazy. I'm usually good with those things, but Albania threw me off. So yeah, they discovered an island off the coast of Albania, and the residents there did what we should be doing, putting belt to ass. Crazy. It takes pride. It takes staying on code. It takes the desire to fight something worth more than Gucci and Hermes and Balenciaga. Hermes, how you? I don't know what that shit is. Fuck all that bullshit. Inside Sazan Island, the Albanian ex-military base bought by Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner with 3,500 bunkers and tunnels. Let's go.
Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner are building a resort on a private island that they bought off the Albanian coast. But what about Hunter Biden and his laptop and his $5 million Ukrainian deal? Donald Trump Jr. landed a $620 million loan contract with the Pentagon? But what about Hunter Biden's laptop? Eric Trump's about to take a company public valued at $1.5 billion. The company, you ask? a drone interceptor that is linked to the Israeli government and military. The drone interceptors are to stop attacks from Iran in a war that Donald Trump escalated and started. No apparent reason other than to enrich his family. What about Hunter Biden's paintings and his laptop? Donald Trump Jr. is married to the daughter of a former friend and banker of Jeffrey Epstein, a guy who once gave him a character reference and said that he is a gentleman of highest integrity. Kind of like when Trump said that him and Epstein were friends for 15 years and that he was a lot of fun to be with. I mean, not to mention that Trump also said, it's even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. But what about Hunter Biden's laptop? Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner are...
Yeah, it's troubled times right now, ladies and gentlemen. It's bad out there. Every accusation is an admission. And, you know, the Trump legacy is just that. They spent, you know, I don't know how many years saying that Obama's birth certificate was fake and he wasn't really a U.S. citizen. They spent years targeting Hunter Biden and his dealings in Ukraine and, you know, calls of nepotism and corruption and, you know, painting Joe Biden as this political criminal because his son, who had no political office at all, had a $5 million consulting deal, I believe, for an Israeli energy I'm saying not Israeli, Ukrainian energy company. And, you know, there's a whole history behind that, but they really kept their foot on the pedal with how they treated Hunter Biden. And when you see Jared Kushner, Ivanka Trump, not just this administration, but the initial administration, the 45's administration, they were doing a lot of things that were corrupt, seemed corrupt. It was just straight. It was corrupt, using the office of the President of the United States of America to enrich themselves. It was a bad look then. It's a bad look now. And Albania said, "Nah, we're not having it." And you know, at some point, you know, the American people will feel the same way. We'll just have enough. There's been tons of no kings protests going on, but he's still in his seat. He's still doing what he does, and they're still making billions. Even when you consider we're at war with Iran and his son Don Jr. has stake in a drone company, and you know, it's like they will cause situations that put our lives in danger, put our economy in danger. Gas prices is what they are. They will create these scenarios, these situations, so they can make money off of them. That's scary, y'all. That's not a good look. To have the President of the United States, leader of the enslaved world, modus operandi, excuse me. You know, I'm gonna go cause bullshit and send in the military. We're gonna spend $1 trillion or so. Shit is bad. Shit is bad. What we got, Vita? Big shout out to Isaac Hayes III, who I follow on Instagram. I'm also I have a platform on Fanbase. I do respect his motion. I respect his movement. I really appreciate him creating platforms for content creators to have other vehicles to work with. I disagree with you here, though, my brother. You old heads, 45 and up, don't realize you're irrelevant to these young teen and 20s hip hop fans like our parents were to us. They don't give a flying fuck what you say about them on your podcast, and you wouldn't either when you were their age. You guys are the Tipper Gore and C. Dolores Tuckers of the hip hop right now. Y'all just don't see it. Okay, so first of all, I have to reiterate over and over again, hip hop is a cultural art form. Hip hop is a lifestyle. It's a way of life. Hip hop is a culture. Hip hop is not just rap music. In fact, much of what we call rap music isn't actually hip hop. That's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother time. What we're talking about here is the music business. And in that, I would say he's right, because every generation should have their stars, their thing that they're doing that their parents don't necessarily have access to. But that's not what we're doing here. They're doing our shit. It's not like they're doing some new shit that's not our shit. Like, you know, we wasn't doing the Temptations. We wasn't doing the Four Tops. We wasn't doing that. We were doing something totally different, totally new. That was our thing that we created that had sustaining power that allows them to do the things that they're doing, calling themselves hip hop. You see what I'm saying? It's not, it really isn't the same thing. That said, nobody's saying that they shouldn't have their own thing and say the things that they want to say, how they want to say it. What we're saying is that if you're going to call it hip hop, you know, it shouldn't look and feel like something that's anti-hip hop. I have a line when I say, basically, we do the things that's meant to kill hip hop. We're actually, what's been going on lately is anti-hip hop. It doesn't move the culture forward. It doesn't move the art form forward. And it's so much so, it's so obvious that even young people are saying this is some bullshit. Like there's been a huge call across generations of this is some bullshit. What are y'all doing? All young artists aren't doing the bullshit. There are tons of young artists that are doing some phenomenal things, like including Drake, although he's 39, about to be 40. So according to Isaac Hayes, in 5 years, Drake should stop making music. That's like the dumbest argument ever. Like, I don't like that argument. I don't know if that's the argument he's making. Let me not put words in his mouth. I don't think he said exactly that. But I've heard other people basically saying that OGs, the old heads, need to give it up, need to do something else. No, artists create art. Artists create art. There's no age limit on being a creator, an artist, right? You create the art and you put it out there, no matter what the art is. It has no distinction, hip hop, jazz, rock and roll, or whatever. You create your art, you put your art out there, and then your art is to be judged, it's to be critiqued, it's to be interpreted, it's used to, you know, for people to break down and have these types of discussions. People are finally maturing to the point that the discussion is maturing, and we're looking for more intelligent, progressive content from artists. And you know, I don't know why that would be upsetting to anyone. I don't know why we would push back on that. You know, it's interesting. You said that you guys are the Tipper Gore and C. Dolores Tuckers of hip hop game right now. No, because we're not in position of political power to establish parental advisory rules. We're not Tipper Gore, right? We're not C. Dolores Tucker. I made a song with KRS-One as a member of Channel Live called Free Mumia, which was an answer to what C. Dolores Tucker and Reverend Calvin Butts was involved in their protest against rap music at the time. And we felt that there were more pressing issues that they could be dealing with, namely, since C. Dolores Tucker's from Philadelphia, why not find justice? Let's get justice for the movement, who were bombed by the Philadelphia city government in 1985. You know, they were steamrolling CDs in 1993. That's 8 years later. That's not a long time. Move never received justice. Mumia is still locked up on trumped up charges. We're looking at young creatives, young artists, and then putting out music. Some of it I disagree with and made music to answer it. Like I had to push back in my music and my content. You know, I wasn't a, you know, gangster rapper or a drug dealer rapper. I'm considered a conscious rapper, a backpack rapper. And I use my art to challenge those who would make gangster rap or drug dealer rap or thug music rap. Yes, but at the same time, when we have power to create platforms for the things we want to hear and like to hear, we create those platforms. Isaac Hayes is one of those folks who've done just that. I think that we don't get enough of that. We spend too much time focused on what we don't like, therefore bringing attention to the very thing that we don't like, when we could be bringing attention to the things that represent our morals, our values, our ethics. One of the reasons why we created 24 Hours of Peace, a major reason why we created 24 Hours of Peace, was to create the environment that we wanted to see, in hopes that others would reflect it. But it seems that, even with some of our Black owned platforms and Black owned media operations, we're still promoting the narrative and the stereotype and the negative parts of our culture. Carter G. Woodson said that when you've successfully created a mental slave, you don't have to tell him to go to the back door. He'll go without being told. And if there is no back door, he will create one for his special use. I see that with how we deal with each other in the music game, where even when it's Black owned, it's still pushing a white narrative, a white stereotypical narrative. The idea that we can't have adult themed music is ridiculous to me. Like, we should, as 50-something-year-olds, 60-something-year-olds, be listening to music that inspire political awareness, political consciousness, just themes that make the community maybe a little bit more serious and focused, much like PE did for us in 86 and 87, and X-Clan and Boogie Down Productions and Big Daddy Kane and, Queen Latifah. And, we had these artists, Paris from the West Coast, Cam from the West Coast, all over the nation, Ghetto Boys, NWA later, Ice Cube later, would give us information and subject matter that was, raise the bar. Like, what's wrong with asking for that? I think art should also represent that, as well as a good time and maybe something of a sexual nature. Like, all forms of art are valuable, but we've kind of been stuck in the mud for way too long. And I think not only the OGs, the 45 and up crowd, but also the 20-somethings and the 30-somethings, I think they're begging for something different too. If we don't make it, if we don't create it, they won't have it. Even if it's to use as an example to then do better. Like, it's not to say that what we're doing is the end all to be all, it's to inspire better. And so, yeah, that's really my take on the Isaac Hayes piece. I usually am in agreement with much of what he says and does. This particular time, I'm like, come on, bruh. Don't go there. Don't do that. Stop shitting on the OGs. We still have so much to offer, and we don't want to give the impression that just because you're above a certain age, you're not worth being listened to. Because then they shut all of us off. And we don't want that. Is that it, Vita? That's the last one. Yeah, that was a nice 2.5 hour set, basically. It was 2 hours. 1.5. Oh, my math is off today, ladies and gentlemen. My geography's off and my math is off. It is what it is. This is the Hakim Green Show, current events show. I hope you enjoyed it. Please share the stream. Please like, subscribe. We're gonna be doing this more often. We try to go weekly. Sometimes you gotta take a break though. Got the Madison Sports Show happening on Tuesdays, and we need to ride that out through the end of the NBA championship, and then we'll be taking a hiatus till September. But the Hakim Green Show will keep rolling right along. Big shout out to my producer, Vita. All right, y'all. The Hakim Green Show. We out.